What boundaries have you had to set in order to be sustainable in your spiritual business?
Ooh, that is a great question.
I feel like this is an ongoing answer kind of question too.
Totally. I think boundaries are the most important thing that we need to set up as owners in general, but especially as spiritual practitioners. I am still learning this. I don't know if we'll ever fully learn it. I hope yes, because I don't want to keep going through lessons. But my biggest lesson so far is being extremely real with myself and what I'm capable of, what I'm good at, what I love to do, and how can I take that and learn to make money from it.
Mm,
Because we know all of these big systems, these corporations, they have a certain way of existing. And how we were talking earlier, just because they're making tons of money doesn't mean they're doing it ethically. I am trying to create an ethical business, and that means that I can't operate the same way that all of these people have been operating. So, long story short, I am still learning
mm,
boundaries. I think it's ever going, but I feel good about where I'm at now, and I think my the way that I'm learning through it is asking myself constantly, how do I feel? Do
mm.
I feel good about this? Do am I excited to do this, or am I really scared? Am
Yeah.
I scared because this is going to lead me into a good direction, or am I scared because I've been here before and I know that this isn't going to work?
Or that I'm going to disappoint the person who like I have a personal relationship with.
Right. That is such a huge thing. I think also because we all get so close, right? Like
Hmm.
you and I, we're friends, 100%,
Hmm.
but we're also colleagues, and
And we respect each other professionally, which is why I think it works.
yeah,
Because for me, I think it's so funny, like, just even reading what boundaries have you had to set is like just the fact that like in life in general, boundaries are such a hard topic for so many people, but in spiritual work, what's hilarious is the fact that like babe, spiritual people have a really hard time with boundaries. Like it's like we're like moths to a flame
yeah,
because we're like, oh my god, we care so much, or I want to understand, or no, it's okay. You disappointed me for like the fifth time because like you had a rough childhood, like, and we like make these like because we care, and we make a lot of excuses often as spiritual people because we if we're spiritual practitioners we probably have really good senses of empathy, of forgiveness, of understanding. But in that same way that we are moths to that flame, so are narcissists. And so are people that are really happy to exploit our patience, our money, our needs, our availability, anything, right? And I don't say that as in like everyone's a narcissist, but I mean like it also doesn't take a narcissist it also doesn't take a narcissist to be exploitive, to like be like it's fine. I mean, she's my spiritual practitioner, like who cares, right? If I like need it, I have a bigger thing in my calendar, so I'll just move her around, right? Like things like that, right? Like the client who like always reschedules, right? Like last minute. I just made that up as an example because I also will reschedule because I have a crazy work life balance. But like, I'm very communicative. There are some people who are not communicative and disappear. There are people who will be, I mean, even makeup will be like late to the appointment, and yet I'm the one that has to rush, right? Or like we want to set something up with other practitioners, and not necessarily in inner pattern but in general, because this is a really wide world of type of services, and maybe like they're not the most professional in terms of time scheduling, communication, money, any of it, right? But to be a spiritual professional, you have to practice boundaries. And I laugh when I read this question because like I still remember, so I'm a Cancer sun with a Scorpio moon. I have so much Cancer in my chart and so much Capricorn too. But like I still remember the first time someone was like, "You need to work on your boundaries." And I was like, "What's a boundary?"
oh my god.
And like I have that active memory of just being like, "What do you mean?" Because I was the kid that told everyone everything, all my feelings, what's going on at home, too much, too much. before my Scorpio moon kicked in and was like, this is a problem, keep your secrets, which is a whole other issue. Too much boundaries on that side. But when it comes to like my spiritual business, like realizing, for example, I can't undercharge my time when I do need to think about how am I paying my rent this month, right? But when I'm in a position where I'm like, okay, I have my budget, I know how much I need to make, how many appointments I have, and it's like, it's coming, like the money is, maybe I can choose to do some donations, or I'm going to go over time with a client because I don't have anything in my schedule and we're talking about something really emotionally intense. So, like, I want to hold some more space. So, I will stay on the call if they don't have anything else to get to, right? Like, I will I will find ways to give of either my time or of like myself when I know that I'm taken care of. Because the biggest thing is that I think a lot of spiritual practitioners enter this business, the business side of things, and get burnout really quick because they just want to give, give, and give. Or for example, I'm not a machine. I can't just do 10 readings in a day and not be exhausted. So I will take less readings. Yes, that means less money. The Capricorn placements are like, what? The efficiency of it all. But I also know I'm giving more of myself. It's a better quality reading. And they're probably going to come back because by having boundaries with my clients, I'm setting up a healthy relationship moving forward. And so now when I think of boundaries, I don't see it as like, oh my God, I've set my boundaries and like they're hard, like walls or like doors, like keep the door closed or I keep the door open. No, I think of it as going to the gym. It's a muscle. It's not about being the most fit person in the world because you also need your rest, right? It's just about exercising the muscle so that when you need it to be strong, you use it. And when you're like, no, I can give a little. Oh, you know what? That's my favorite machine, but that person who's probably newer to the gym and having some trouble is like nervous to ask me for it. I'm going to give it to them. And that is practicing healthy
It's that
boundaries.
discernment, right? Like knowing just because a boundary exists doesn't mean it has to be this intense all the time. It's like I know myself well enough to know when to exercise it and when to not. When can I give a little bit? When can I be like, okay, this is where I need to exert some of that boundary and push, or when can I lean in and just let it happen?
Yeah.
It's
like boundaries are not rules.
Right.
Like when you break a rule, there's a consequence. And not everything, like sometimes we need the rules, sometimes we need discernment in boundaries. So yeah, for example, like if someone it takes before when I didn't have my payment systems, right? Because I had a lot of fear around charging, which is a whole other thing that we get into with being a spiritual practitioner, learning how to, and not just a spiritual practitioner, but an artist, an entrepreneur, working for yourself, period. Learning to charge for your exchange can be so hard when you're an emotionally sensitive person or a spiritual person. And so like before I had my like automatic, you could pay with a card or like, it asks you before it completes it to process payment, I would have to hold my like nerves until the end of an appointment to be like, okay, so now you can send me payment this way if you like. I hope you'll do it soon. And like, some people are great and pay right away. And some people are like, okay, like I'll get to it. And you're like, wait, I just spent like an hour with you, but like you're forgetting to pay me for like 3 days. You don't forget to pay your like landlord when it's due. You don't go to McDonald's and be like, next week, like just how we pay our bills. Like I pay my bills with this work. Like this is not just like on the side or like, oh, like, I'm sure they live off something else. Like, no, this is how I pay. I support my life. I support my doggy's life, like my spoiled almost 11-year-old. But also it's funny because it's a little bit less with the like nowadays with like people like actually confirming payment, even though with makeup I'm often chasing invoices, but that's just the structure of the industry, like net 30, net 60, net 90, like, and it's less personal, so that's why it becomes harder to chase, and it's just unfortunately a very standardized thing that I am very against, but here we are. But with my spiritual work, I realize something that comes up more is the lack of like lack of respect for my time. And I know that it's not meant intentionally, but this is where boundaries comes in because most people come to a spiritual practitioner in a hard time when they're going through something. And so there's a sense of urgency that if you're fighting with your boyfriend in the middle of the night, you might DM me and want to talk right then, or you want to know when you can schedule right then. And I would answer, and I would answer in times that were I was busy or like I was distracted from something else or that I didn't have the capacity because like I'm with my mom right now having dinner. Like, why am I looking at like your blaring anxiety message? And I realized that I had to like start to set like spiritual office hours where it's like I may not have a thing that says I'm available to contact at this time, but I would like not answer after a certain amount of time because you need to respect that I have a life too. I'm not always on. And if you want to know when I'm available next, look at my website. Like there are things in place to help you get there. And granted, if it's a reasonable time of day and I've got a message from someone who's a very close client of mine, I get why you would feel like can I reach out because I'm going through something very pressing. I don't blame the urge, but I will decide with my sense of boundaries how I will respond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Which might sometimes look like, hey, I know you have very little time because I don't know, you're about to travel and you want an answer before you're about to take a very big decision. Okay, let me see if I can make an exception for you. If it's within my capabilities of like availability, of time, of energetic energy, like availability too. Like I have to be emotionally in alignment to be able to handle frantic energy.
Right, true.
But if I don't, then I might be like, this is the closest time I have. Hope that works for you. And that's not me being bitchy. That just means like, that's the soonest I can see you.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, like, especially when there is like a little bit of distance between that moment being asked and when I can see them, we need that time for them to kind of not be so high strung so they can actually be receptive to whatever's going to come up either in the cards or tarot, like in the cards or the astrology of it all, because you can't get clarity when you have so much frantic anxiety.
Very true. It's a little different with Reiki. I'm like, yeah, you need to come in and we gotta chill that energy, But it's different for tarot because it's more of like a mental, like let's already be in that chill mindset. Whereas in Reiki, I'm like, I'm getting you there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like so with tarot, like there's a conversation that's happening.
Right.
And especially the more I've developed relationships with people, like you'll tell me more details, you'll give me more. And the thing is, especially when people are fighting something that is either not not seeing red flags in their relationships or in a toxic work environment or, you know, realizing they have mom issues when they always thought it was just dad issues, like that stuff, that's tough. Denial is a heavy thing, or like or stubbornness or just like not wanting to see things. Well, no, let me tell you another thing, like you have to consider this, and like I have to like, okay, let me continue, and then you can give me that information because this is still the card I pulled, this is still what's coming out and we got to talk about it. And when I say talk, I mean you got to listen, because this is, you asked for this message, you gonna receive it, you know. I'm gonna let you know today. But I mean, I'm being a little silly here because obviously, with someone who I'm very close to as a client, who like I often have friends that became clients, clients that became friends. Like I dance in this world because this is what I've chosen for my life. That's a set of boundaries that I exercise myself. But for example, let's just say it's someone who always contacts me in an emergency and it's like, oh my God, what's happening in the stars, right? I'm not gonna be like, hey, you can only contact me from this to this time when you want to ask me something astrologically, because maybe this is also a girlfriend that I have plans with, like for dinner later that night. So I can't just be like, no. But I might say, hey, girl, I'm working on something right now, or I'm not fully on my phone, or you know what? Let's talk about this when we get together. or like, let's put a pin in this, we'll circle back. Because I also need to show like it's not at the drop of a hat that I'm going to start throwing astrological knowledge or
Right.
getting into your personal charts. I might do that when we're like on your couch just keying it up, right? But when it's a client or if it's a service that or someone wants to come to me for a service, I need to have the like, hey, okay, you want to talk about something that I can't just do off the top of my head. I need to look at your chart. I think we need to get into it. I think we need to be in a receiving space. So like, let's put it in the calendar.
Yeah. And I think that's what sometimes we internalize when people are like, oh my God, tell me what's going on in astrology, right? And we're like, I need to respond now and I need to tell them and they're expecting this. And I think sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know. I was just kind of like reaching out and just like seeing what would happen. Like they might not be expecting your immediate attention or like they're not expecting a reading. Right?
Yeah.
But
we might think, oh my God, they want a reading.
Yeah. And I start panicking and I'm like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And I'm like, are you free? Are you this? And it's like, why am I putting that pressure on myself?
Yeah.
They asked a question, which they're in their home. Maybe they're laying in bed at 1 a.m. and they're like, oh, they come across dinner pattern and they're like, damn, I've been meaning to ask Coreen this. And then I get a message at 1 a.m. and I'm like, how dare they message me?
And I have to answer now.
And now I have to answer. And it's like, or you could just answer
when you're available. Yeah.
You know, like
I like now I like the boundary isn't like I'm not going to answer until this day. Like the boundary is like, oh, I see that they've reached out to me and if I'm up to it, I will answer it. And if I'm not, I will reach out when I'm up to it. Right? Yeah. And like go from there. Also, we also have to check ourselves with like there was probably a time in your practice where you're like, oh my God, I wish someone would want to ask me about this because they respect me or they like want my insight or it's a bid for connection, right? Like people want to connect, but when and how is up to you as a practitioner, right? Sometimes I might like, depending on where I'm at with my life, I might be like, boy, I have not even checked the stars, but I'm feeling it too. Let's see. Like, I'll come back to this. Or honestly, more times than not, I have some basic idea of what's going on in the sky. So I might be like, that moon, and I don't even know what's happening with the moon, but I'll be like, it's that moon, you know? Because probably I'm sorry. The moon is mooning, right? But I'm like, and if they give me, because sometimes people will give me a lot of information when I was like, oh, I did think it was actually just a surface level, very cutesy, like, what's going on in the stars? And then they will dump like a lot of personal things that I'm like, okay, I'm happy to hold space for you, but not only in my DMs. Like, let's get on a call, let's get in person, let's do a session, like, because let's just say I take the time to answer you in like paragraphs and then you don't respond to me for like 2-3 days, I don't know what has happened. So like I need that space to be able to be like, okay, I've done what is needed of me and asked of me. And also the thing about having these professional boundaries, it also allows you to not feel burnt out by like how much you give, because you're like, oh my God, I know all this stuff, but like I can't even keep like my bills on like, on auto pay. Like I can't even like, I'm always stressed out about money, but like I'm here fixing other people's love lives, So it's like you need these things so that you can also feel like, okay, like I'm putting on my like oxygen mask and then I'll put on yours. And I would say like when I was a child, I used to be so bewildered by that because I was like, as someone who is like such a people pleaser and so like caring about other people, I would be like, well, no, you should try and help other people first. Why are you going to do it? Like, I used to think that was so weird. But it's like, truly, you can't help other people until you help yourself, which is like, you can't expect boundaries from other people unless you set boundaries for yourself.